Hello beautiful people, I'm RaishPhoenix, and in today's video I will be showing you guys the process for this watercolor piece. If you'd like to see, just keep watching. I started off with doing 30-second face studies. My main goal is to loosen up with this, so I focus first on the human skull. I draw an eye socket, and then I focus on the brow bone connecting to the next eye socket. Then I think about the cheekbones, the mouth, and then the chin, and then I try connecting all the areas with the overall size or shape of the skull. The reason why I like to start off with doing these is because it helps me to not get too stuck in one area when I do move on to the Reno watercolor piece. I do have a habit of whenever I'm drawing something to kind of get stuck in one area until I feel like I get it right. And the problem with that is I'll overwork, like, let's say for example, like the right eye or the shape of the nose, but then I won't really pay attention to how things play in relation to each other. Like, that's another thing that I'm definitely becoming more aware of, the mistake that I make, or in general just something I want to improve on, because I'll get the shape of the eyes correct, but then the scale of the eyes in relation to the nose will be off, and then like so many things can get messed up. So the main point with doing 30 seconds is to just focus on the human skull, to get that area figured out, and then to think about the features that are laying on top. And then from doing 30-second sketches, I'll move on to either a minute or 2 minutes, and this is where I allow myself to focus more on the actual eye shape or the shape of the nose or the shape of the mouth. And it just helps me to loosen up, like I said already, and to get a better idea of just like three-dimensionality, because as an artist, I do get stuck thinking about 2D. Of course, drawing on a flat surface, I don't always get the best grasp of three-dimensionality, and also just working from reference and not being able to be like physically in front of someone, it is very easy for the overall image to get flattened out. So I am doing my best to just pay attention to lighting, how it's affecting how the light is sitting on the face, and then to really figure out how to flesh out a shape that conveys three-dimensionality when I do these studies. Also, if any of you may be wondering, the website I'm using is reference.sketchdaily.net. What I like about this website is it allows you to decide whether you want to draw a male or a female. It allows you to also do time intervals, so you can set for 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes, an hour. And then on top of that, it does have another section where you can just focus on the head or hands or feet. The only thing is that there isn't a lot of pictures. Like, there's a decent amount. I do know that they keep adding to the inventory that they have, but sometimes pictures do get recycled a lot, in terms of you see that picture a lot depending on if you switch from 30 seconds in that session and then go to a 1 minute section. But I do like that it allows you to have that, like, pretty much not to have to worry about how long you're timing yourself for, and you kind of just go in and just focus on what you need to get done. Usually I stop doing studies once I feel like I've refreshed my memory enough of the anatomy of the human skull. I feel like once I hit the point in 30 seconds where I feel like I'm getting better at putting more information on the page. So what I mean by that is, if I do like my first 30-second sketches and then I notice that I'm only able to complete like the eyes and the nose, and then after a while I start realizing I'm getting the eyes and the nose and the mouth in within 30 seconds, and then I start getting like the entire overall shape of the face, then I'll move on to 1 minute or 2 minutes, and then from there, depending on how soon I'm able to get in the facial features that I see, and then on top of that being able to understand what I'm seeing, when I get to that point, that's when I'm like, okay, I'll move on to my final piece. So here I'm starting with my sketch for Reno. At this point, I'm not really doing I'm not timing myself. I'm not doing like a 30-second of getting in a certain amount. I'm just trying to do my best to move on the overall shape. So I'm doing the same technique, starting with the eye sockets, then I'm going to move on to the nose, the mouth, and then the overall size or shape. I keep saying size. I mean the overall shape of the skull. So like I said, I'm focusing first on the bones underneath, then I'll move on to the features after that. I'm not gonna lie, in the beginning, I definitely had a lot of trouble with the sketch phase of Reno, and I almost gave up on it. And the reason why I almost gave up on it is before this, I did try to draw a cloud digitally, and at that point, I had been drawing women a lot, so I accidentally kept giving Cloud female features, and that's when I started getting back into the habit of doing face studies before I go into the final piece. And I was so frustrated from my experience with Cloud that I decided to draw Reno, or at least try, you know? And then when I started seeing that I got into this habit of keep adjusting his nose, keep adjusting his eyes, I don't know, like I started to second guess myself, and I'm like, if this is so frustrating right now, I don't know if I should just give it a break, because I have this thing where I feel like when I care too much about a character, I get annoyed about drawing them wrong, and it kind of messes with my ability to see what is wrong about it. Instead, I just think, oh my god, this is a character that I admire, or I love, or I think is cool, and I keep screwing it up. I can't stand this. I don't want to do this anymore, and I just want to throw it. Just like, I don't know, like go lay down and just like sit in anger, like underneath my bed sheets or something. So I did my best to be like, okay, like just relax, think about the studies you just did, think about like what you're seeing, and do the best that you can to get the information in. And eventually I was able to get the sketch to the right scale. One of the things that made it really difficult was because from moving from a real human and then looking at a 3D render, of course, there are certain features that are going to be different because it is the 3D model. And what was difficult was his cheekbones, like getting a good idea of where his cheeks were. And then from there, I think I had difficulty with just getting the length of his nose right and also getting the shape and the eye distance correct. Eventually, I did start kind of just using the length of my pencil to kind of use as a measurement on the how would I say, on the picture that I'm referencing, and then using that same measurement to use on the paper. So what I mean by that is I'll hold up my pencil and I'll measure his eye, and then I'll see if his eye is an eye's distance from his other eye, if that makes sense. I know it's kind of difficult, but I feel like as an art student, if you've done this, like you know what I'm talking about. So I'll measure the shape, not the shape, the length of his eye, and then I'll look at my paper and then I'll measure the length of his eye and then see if that distance is the same when it comes to the scale I'm drawing him at and the scale that's on the reference that I'm looking at. And once I was able to keep doing that, and I kept paying attention to the relation of everything overall and the shape of his face, like eventually it added up and I was able to get it, and I made it from the sketch to the watercolor. When it comes to placing down the watercolor, the first thing I did was laying down like the lightest shades on his face. So that was pretty much the pink and yellow undertones that I was getting from the lightest areas on his face. And I'm definitely working in from light to dark when it comes to laying down these colors. I started with the face and then from there I started to move on to like his jacket and his hair, because what I realized after a while was that his hair and his jacket was the most contrasting things in the picture from his face. So I didn't want to overwork his face with a bunch of shadows to feel like I needed more depth in that area, because I know that later on when I add the hair in and the jacket color, that it would create that depth that I'm looking for. Also, I liked using a flat brush. I feel like I definitely haven't used a flat brush that much. It's never been, I don't know, I guess in my mind I always thought a flat brush would mess up my ability to do what I'm doing. like this is difficult to explain, but when I'm working with watercolor, or when I've worked with acrylic or oil in the past, like when I was in college and high school, I never really went for a flat brush because I felt like it would limit my ability to capture whatever shape I was going for. And now that I've been using a flat brush, I'm just like, why did I not do this before? Because I love using a flat brush because I feel like it covers a certain amount of area. Like clearly you see that the flat brush covers more area with how the bristles are spread versus like a round brush. And it helped me with, again, that three-dimensionality thing that I'm going for, so I could kind of carve out the cheekbones or carve out the shape of his lips or whatever area I'm working on. So it was such a rewarding feeling to work with that brush. And it's also funny that I accidentally started dry brushing with watercolor because you guys will see in the future I have other watercolor pieces that I'm going to share with you guys. But when I started laying down the colors in this piece, my intentions were to, I don't know, just be careful, quote unquote, be careful. So what I ended up doing was I made sure that I didn't go in with a lot of water, and I had more pigment than water on the brush, which resulted in dry brushing. And this piece definitely resembles color pencils a lot because of the way that I dry brushed it on. And it's actually something I really like about how it turned out. But it was funny how all this information from when I used to work with watercolor in the past started coming back to me, because I don't know, like I haven't worked with watercolor in such a long time that I feel like I forgot everything. And when I would start with watercolor, I'm just like, what am I doing? Like I don't know what I'm doing. and somehow using less water and using more pigment, I started accidentally dry brushing, and then I started to get the hang of it, and I was like, okay, like now I can see kind of clearer what I'm going for. Another thing I was really happy about in terms of how this piece turned out was being able to capture really deep colors, like what I'm doing right now for his eyes, and capturing his eyelashes and the iris, that's what it's called, right? The iris of his eyes, and then also just the hair strokes that I've added into his hair that are more deeper. I was really glad that I was able to use watercolor to do that, because honestly I was thinking I'm gonna have to use black gouache to capture that depth, but then I realized that I need to control how much water I'm adding to the watercolor to be able to capture that depth that I really wanted. And once I figured it out and how to do what I wanted. It looked so good and I was so happy with that. One of the things I did have difficulty with while working on this piece was being at peace with how much it didn't resemble the original or the photo that I was referencing, because like I mentioned before, the difficulty I had with Cloud was that it didn't look like him because I accidentally kept giving him female features. But another issue that I ran into was I was trying to draw him in my style, but I felt like because I was drawing him in my style, it wasn't going to resemble him 100%. And I felt like I was screwing up a character that a lot of people, including myself, admire. And it started to get to my head, which is why I took a break from it. And hopefully in the future, you'll see a Cloud piece from me. But right now, I'm like, nah, not happening, right? But with Reno, like I said, the difficulty I had was looking at my piece and then looking at the picture of Reno and being like, okay, this doesn't look like 100% like this photo. And my goal was to draw him, but not in my style. But I do understand how this will still mimic my style because I'm an artist and my style will be there no matter what, regardless of if I'm pushing it as much as I'd like to or not. And I think the main thing that was different is specifically his expression. I know that his face, like the corner of his mouth, is a little bit curved up more, and I think that I definitely made his eyes smaller, so his eyes aren't as big as they are in the photo that I referenced. But the more I worked on this piece, the more I looked at it, the more it grew on me, and I was like, I really have to give myself credit for what it is. And I think that's another thing that's difficult, is recognizing that it's okay if you don't like your work that much. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay if you didn't get it to a T what you wanted it to be, because we all start somewhere and we have to make progress to be able to get to making better work. And it sucks that I have this poor habit of beating myself up when things don't look 100% the way I intended it to, or when I have a vision in my mind and then when I put it on the paper it doesn't look great. And I just need to remind myself to allow myself to make mistakes, because when I don't, that's when I just never learn. Like, I have to make mistakes, or I have to do something that is whatever it's meant to be for that time period for me to be able to grow. So looking at this piece, like I said, when it's completed and done, like, I love it. Like, it's great. Like, I want to put it on my wall. And like I said, this is like probably my best watercolor piece like in a very long time, and I'm happy with it. But that was definitely something that was challenging, to be able to look at my piece and be like, okay, like, this doesn't look 100% like Reno, but at the same time, I'm not 100% drawing this in my style, so can I still give myself credit for drawing Reno in the way that I did? Is it okay if I do give myself credit? Like, should I be proud of this? And I'm like, hell yeah, you should be proud of this. You worked so hard on it. Like, look at it, So that was something definitely tricky to work through. But once I allowed myself to just be at peace with what it is, I was able to move forward from that thought. And also, like, I just love the colors that I use. So I'm using the, I believe it's called the art, give me a minute. Let me look at this. What is it called? So I'm pretty sure it's Art Philosophy now. It says Prima Marketing on it, but I'm pretty sure they changed their name to Art Philosophy. So I'm using a combination of the Tropicals and the Pastel Dream set. I just set aside a certain colors from both of those sets to be able to put this watercolor piece together. And yeah, I was so happy with these colors because, I don't know, it kind of looks like Skittles, Like, kind of looks like candy. Like, the more I look at it, I'm like, his hair kind of resembles some watermelon and cherry tones, When I look at his jacket, I'm kind of getting like blueberry and grape, maybe some what's the green flavor usually, or green flavor, like I don't know, like kiwi or something. Like this looks or apple. Like he looked cute or whatever, you know. He looked cute or whatever, but I really loved how this piece turned out. And then for finishing touches, I went in with a white gel pen and I put some highlights in his eyes and on his earring. And here is the completed piece. Thank you so much for watching. Bless up, and until next time, sending out much peace, love, and enlightenment. Bye, guys.